ask, I'm just curious, how many were you at the, of you were at the class I gave here last month? Okay. Raise your hand if you're a vegan. Raise your hand if you're a vegetarian. Okay, and I suppose about half of you are veg curious, or you sort of tend in that direction, or you want to learn more about it?
No, I'm just lazy. I just eat whatever's put in front of me. It's vegan, vegetarian, I'm meat.
Well, the ingredients in this is a really good cornbread. I just, before Kat cuts into this, I made this morning. I just wanted to show this to you because I love how it looks in this cast iron pan. You just have to be careful. You put the pan in the preheated oven or put it in the oven as it's heating, and you've got to be very careful not to grab it when it's time to take it out. You got to use gloves, so just you've got to be really alert to that. So the ingredients are really common ingredients, but some of them I take special care when I buy, and I'll explain it to you as we use them. How some of these are really better than the flour that you just pick up anywhere. Also, how many of you have seen the museum, which is against a north wall in the main library? Last time I totally forgot. I got so caught up in the class that I forgot to give a tour of the museum afterwards. So remind me today, and those of you who like, we can tour the museum afterwards. Okay, so first of all, notice that I use only whole grains. Does anyone know the difference between a whole grain and a processed grain? Yeah.
I believe whole grains they don't take the hull off or the husk off, something to that effect, and it maintains the nutrients.
It does maintain the nutrients more and the things that we need. The husk usually comes off anyway. The husk is usually what's referred to. The husk is the real hard sort of, I don't know, bark-like thing at the end. That usually comes off anyway. But the bran, when we process flours, it starts with whole wheat. And that same grain turns into white. And it's by taking off the outer bran, and that gives us roughage, which is really important, and lack of it can cause different kinds of cancers. And the germ is removed. That's all the brown parts of the wheat. And the germ has all the nutrients. So both those things are removed. I always use...
Bread is like the junk.
Yes, it is.
The good stuff goes in another bag.
Yeah, I read once.
$18 a bag. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I read once. It was interesting that I don't know if this is true, but I remember reading once that the reason we processed our grains is because when we store them, the animals and the insects are attracted to the whole grains, not to the white flour, because they instinctively go toward the nutrients. Wow. I don't know if that's true, but it stayed with me. I thought it was interesting. Yeah. So for this, we're using pastry flour. Does anybody know the difference? So there's whole wheat pastry flour and whole wheat bread flour. Does anybody know the difference?
The gluten or the protein?
Wheat has a lot of gluten.
Pastry and regular flour.
And the bread flour is very high in gluten, and pastry flour is low in gluten. And gluten has the characteristic that when it rubs together, it sticks together. So when you're making bread, the reason you need is you're deliberately rubbing that gluten against each other, and therefore the yeast can push up and the bread will rise. When you're making cookies or a pie crust or a pastry, you don't want the gluten to stick together. You want it delicate, flaky, you want it to fall apart. And so for that we use whole wheat pastry flour. The cornmeal is organic, stone ground. When we grind flours in great quantities, instead of two stones rubbing against each other, it goes at a very high speed. It's metal crushing the grains, and it's at a very high speed. And that speed creates heat, and the heat destroys certain nutrients. So, and that's the reason why stone ground is a little better. So, okay, we will start with 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Now, because their kitchen is small, and I'm cooking out here, we're not going to bake it here. So I'm going to make this, and then I'll give it to those of you who want to take home, and you could just bake some of this yourself, as well as eating what we have here.
So what is the egg replacement?
There is no egg replacement.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, it's regular.
This is rising in a couple of different ways. We're using baking soda, baking powder, and we're using the 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, warms up with the soy or almond milk, and you just put this by your stove, and you see how frothy it gets. It sort of starts to bubble. And so this is a third way that it rises.
Something's holding this together, though.
Well, the flour.
Flour.
Yeah, the flour holds it together. So, I always use fresh vegetables and not garlic powder. You could buy garlic powder, you could buy, I don't know what to call it, like red pepper that's hot. But I prefer to use the fresh. For one, you know you're getting quality. If there's any little thing to cut out of this, I cut it out and throw it away. Where you know in a big factory, they're not going to bother with that. Whatever garlic they get, they're going to grind up and they're going to sell. So I'm just going to show you how I cut this. This then gets pan fried for 5 minutes.
Move my little bit bowl over here so we can see.
Oh, thank you. So it's pretty simple. The serrano peppers.
When I use fresh garlic, I slice them in half and I take that inside part out.
I take it out if it's growing. You know, sometimes it turns green and you see like a little sprout. Yeah. But otherwise, I don't see any reason to remove the inside. But if you see that it looks different.
Well, and it always comes out easy.
So the serrano, the seeds are the hottest part.
Yeah, they're very hot. I don't like stuff too hot, so I remove them. If you like stuff very hot, leave the seeds in. If you're sort of in between, leave half of them in. But I always remove them. And so I'm just doing this to show you how I cut them. But you then put this over a hot pan. I never pour oil in a pan. I just take a brush and lightly brush it on. Most of the vegan doctors in our country say don't eat oil, and the recipes they give have no oil at all. And I just, I don't know, I'm just used to a little oil and I like the taste of it. If you can do without it, great. But that's why I brush the oil on. I just use as little as possible. So that will cook on the stove. And what I did is I cooked it before I left the house, and so we will add this to our recipe. Okay. So number 4, in a medium bowl, mix together the pastry flour. I only brought the 4-cup measure. And we need 2 cups of this, so a 1/4. Oh no, I brought the bigger one. A 1/2. Good.
She forgot that one.
1. Yeah. 1.5.
Is it like 6 ounces again?
I don't know. I don't know. But typically,
5-ounce cup, 6-ounce cup.
Cup is 8 ounces.
No.
a cup is 8 ounces. Not in weight, but in volume, I think. When you measure dry ingredients, it's good to use these nested cups. When you're measuring wet ingredients, just to get it more exact. So that's 2 cups of whole wheat pastry flour, 1 cup of cornmeal, a half a teaspoon of baking soda,
I didn't know they had Whole Foods had baking soda.
oh yeah, they put their name on everything. 2 teaspoons of baking powder,
I get those mixed up, right?
yeah, 3/4 teaspoon of salt.
Sea salt. Now, is there any reason why, I know a lot of chefs like to use kosher salt, they said. It's the biggest-
I know that. I see that, and I don't know why.
They said it's tastes saltier, but you use less or something. So I guess you're trying to.
Yeah, I really don't know why that would be. I know in order to be kosher, it has to go before maybe a rabbi or something, but I don't know why it would be different. You know, I really don't know.
So what's the iodine supposed to do? I forget. Somebody told me what the iodine.
You need it for your thyroid.
And most
Yeah.
of the time you'll find it in salt. But
You-
the rest of the foods you have.
Yeah, usually it's not iodized, but
In other foods.
y-
It's not a large enough quantity in other foods.
I don't know. I think it depends on the soil the food comes from.
Soil maybe.
Yeah.
Depleted, so,
Treated with iodine.
depleted,
Yeah.
you said this.
But when I had, what happened? Oh, I had an overgrown thyroid, and that's why I buy iodized salt. I don't know if it matters or not, but it was really, so when I was young, I used to get colds all the time. Why did I get cold? Now I can't remember the last time I had a cold. It's been decades. Why did I have colds? My mother was blowing smoke in my face all day, and I would get colds. And so then when I got older, I had my tonsils removed, yeah. At any rate, that's the reason I use this. Okay, so that's the dry ingredients. I'm going to mix them here, not with the wet, because we want to mix, at any time you're making a dessert, you want to mix it as little as possible just to get the dry ingredients wet. For the reason we talked about, you don't want to develop the gluten in a dessert. You want it to be light and flaky. So I'm going to mix it while it's still dry. Now, this is interesting. The corn, I use bowls to cut the corn off the cob. Of course, you can buy frozen corn. This is so delicious. This isn't even organic. It's hard to get organic corn. I don't know why, because I think Illinois is the corn and soybean center of the country, but it's really hard to find organic corn. But you just take a sharp knife and do it in a bowl so that the corn doesn't fly all over the room. And I really don't know why we put butter and salt on corn and boil it in water, which destroys certain nutrients. I don't know why we go through all that when raw corn is so delicious. So here is this. Now there's still a lot of corn left, even where you can see it's like uneven how I cut it. You take this over to the kitchen sink. It is so delicious. Don't let anybody see you doing it, it's gross, but it is so good, and that I don't know why we bother cooking corn.
Well, I know that I read somewhere that, you know how they make tortillas, they use lime? Because
Yes.
lime releases some of the nutrients from the corn.
Oh, that's interesting. I just assumed they did it just for flavor. Uh-huh.
Original reason, but it does release some of the nutrients.
Huh. When you buy tortillas also, you can get tortillas made with processed corn, or you can get it made with whole grain corn. So if you read the ingredients before you buy them.
But the flour's not vegan though, is it?
It is, they are vegan.
The flour, I thought they put lard in the flour. Flour tortillas.
No, I have never noticed that. Maybe some brands do, but I've personally never noticed that.
I think the Mexican brands put lard in there.
Okay, so that's the corn.
Process it anyway.
But I just switched to corn and.
Oh, okay. No, I stopped using the wheat when I found out that
Yeah.
was
Okay, so together the corn, a 1/4 cup of olive oil. And I think a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. Yeah, 1/2 cup of maple syrup.
Maple syrup is better than agave?
No, I think they're both pretty good. Maple syrup, they just take it out of the tree. They do boil it down then to, I guess,
Better than what?
thicken it, agave. I think agave is from a cactus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use agave, maple syrup. What have I been using lately? I forget. You can get date sugar, which is just ground up dates. That might be the best sweetener because it's just the pure dates ground up. Okay.
On raw sugar.
I'm not crazy about it. I don't eat it. I'm not exactly sure why. I just stay away from regular sugar.
No, raw sugar.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah. It's still regular sugar, it's just raw.
It's from the sugar cane.
Right, but they haven't stripped the
It's not
nutrients.
processed, right?
Yeah, maybe it is okay. I really haven't explored it. I know when I first started, I just wanted to keep away from sugar, and so I haven't really explored that. Okay, mix. Now this, mind you, if it's by a hot stove, it's already frothing, but if it's by a hot stove, it'll even be bubblier. So this is what I'm going to give you to take home. And this is the garlic, the serranos, and the red pepper that I cooked for 5 minutes. Okay, so now, and I do this with all baked goods. I used to own a bakery, but I do this with all baked goods. I'm going to dump the flour in because if I stir it as I pour it, then I'm developing that gluten. So I want to mix it as little as possible until the flours disappear. Okay. So you can use a rectangular pan, you can use a cast iron pan. And that is it.
The oil, can't really use olive oil, right? It's just not, because it's,
I did use olive oil.
no, I mean for the pan.
You can get a spray and just lightly spray the pan, or you can brush it with olive oil. Yeah.
I thought it was a certain temperature.
Are there any questions? Kat can hand out samples. Did you get to cut the one in the pan?
I do not have a knife yet.
Okay.
really smooth, and you could taste the grains in your mouth, so it definitely feels whole.
Oh, it's very nice. Yeah. You can't tell it's vegan.